Thank you for joining us for another episode of Tog Talks, sponsored by Photographer Entrepreneurs Association. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the association, go to photographerentrepreneur.com to learn more about photography business resources, templates, training, and support. We'll see you over there. All right, welcome everyone. We're here and back again interviewing the fabulous Dave Doeppel. So we're so excited to have Dave on the show with us today. He has a wealth of knowledge and we're excited to hear him share his experience. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. I want to share a little bit about Dave and who he is, and then we're going to dive right in. So Dave discovered his passion for all things photography the moment he picked up his very first camera. Since then, he's been taking photos professionally and helping new photographers refine their artistic skills. When he isn't educating or capturing beautiful moments through a camera lens, Dave loves exploring the world with his dogs and his wife, Regina. So wonderful. Yes. So Dave, why don't we just start off by telling you a little bit about you, your expertise, a little bit about your business, and maybe something that people don't know about your business.
Sure. So yeah, it's funny because a lot of people don't actually know my complete story of how I even got back into this. I mean, obviously, like I said, I started taking pictures when I was a kid. I mean, I had a Brownie camera. I was, taking pictures of my friends on the street. I was lucky enough in junior high, when we still called it junior high, that we had a photography teacher. We had 2 dark rooms at our school.
Wow.
And so I learned we rolled our own film, we developed, we did our own black and white prints. I've probably forgotten more about all of that because it was so long ago. But I kind of got into it. I always have had a camera. I remember my first digital camera, which I bought. I don't even remember how long ago that was. It was a Kodak 1 megapixel camera.
Wow.
Way long ago. So, I've always been a photographer, never really did it professionally. And then in about 2008, 2009, my wife also was always, kind of a hobbyist. And when we got married, she was still shooting a film camera, and I had bought her a digital Canon, and so just kind of progressed from there. She got into a wedding mentorship program. She decided she wanted to shoot weddings, and obviously I have my background with photography. I also had a background in graphic design. I used to teach and instruct on CorelDRAW, and I'm still, I'm an IT guy. I'm still an IT guy. I still work. I'm an IT director here in Pasadena. So that technical background and also having the graphics and photography background, I ended up being her go-to guy for her post-processing stuff. She didn't have that background. She had the taking the pictures. She'd always done that. And so she got into this program. I had to learn Lightroom because that's what her mentor was using. Unfortunately, realized that what I was taught was a very poor way of using Lightroom. And so I kind of went on my journey of learning the technical aspects of Lightroom, how it worked, learning workflow and how to make things more efficient. Ended up getting certified by Adobe in Lightroom. After that, got certified in Photoshop. And I started kind of running little workshops for the local people that were also in her mentoring group, that were all wanting to be wedding photographers. And so I started teaching Lightroom, and then that just kind of exploded. And so, I ended up I think my first actual official conference I taught at was at After Dark in 2014. And then, I've done imaging, I've done WPPI, Shutterfest the last 4 years. So my progression has been on the teaching and educating side. She was doing the wedding business, and unfortunately, she was not taught how to be a wedding photographer and how to run a wedding photographer business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she got burned out very quickly because of that.
Yeah.
And so she really wanted to shoot high school seniors because, again, she's going out to all these conferences and she was seeing all these amazing, photographers doing senior photography, Dan Freevault, and there's so many. But in Los Angeles, there's no senior photography market. I mean, it doesn't exist. What's odd is 3 hours south of here in San Diego, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it doesn't exist. Complicate that with the fact that we did not have kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of struggled. And again, a lot of it was that she wasn't taught the photography business side of things when she was in this mentorship program for weddings. They really kind of just did style bridal shoots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right.
And that's what she learned. So she did learn how to take, better images than she was taking, but never learned the business side of being a photographer. And I didn't have that skill set as well. So, I kind of kept going on the teaching thing. She kind of just decided not to shoot anymore at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of left like, well, I'm out teaching photography. I probably should be shooting something. And so what year was that? I guess it was 2013. I was at WPPI and I went to one of the platforms, and it was this photographer by the name of Mike Long who runs Portland Pinups.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a fan of pinups and Betty Page and that whole genre and the 50s and rockabilly. And I was sitting in, because I'd always seen the artwork, amazing artwork by the original pinup masters. I never really thought you could do that with photography.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat in this class, and it was kind of like, oh, that was an aha moment. That's something I could do and I would like to do. And literally I was in that class because he runs Portland Pinups, and Mike and I are friends now. And he's just a great guy, and he runs Portland Pinups. And I was sitting in the crowd watching, and I'm looking up on probably GoDaddy, and I'm searching for domain names, and I searched for LA Pinups, and it was available. So I bought it. I bought it while I was sitting in the class at WPPI. And so, but then I still didn't I didn't know what to do with it at that point. And so it took me a while. I've since found out that domain was previously owned by William Innes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Who actually lives very close to me. And he bought it with the intent of doing something with it, and he let it go. I snatched it up. And then it really wasn't until later that year that I actually went to a local meetup where this guy was doing pinup models. And so I went and actually started shooting. And so that was kind of my trajectory on the shooting side of things. I started doing pinup. I started doing a little boudoir, but I was still more focused on teaching at that point, teaching Lightroom specifically. And so I didn't do a whole lot. And again, I didn't have the business knowledge, the marketing knowledge that I needed to really be successful at that.
Right.
It was hit or miss. I was traveling a lot, so I really wasn't home enough to put a lot of focus on it. So I still do that. It's not my emphasis. But it was funny because there wasn't a lot of people at that time, like 2014, 2015, there wasn't a lot of people out teaching pinup stuff.
Right.
Mike really is limited on where he goes. It was pretty much WPPI, and then he's done a few kind of state or regional PPA affiliates that he's taught his pinup stuff at, but it's pretty limited. So there hasn't been a lot of people. And then people found out I was shooting it, and it was like, oh, you got to do a pinup class. All right. So I literally, I was either known as the Lightroom guy or the pinup guy.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was kind of my trajectory and on how I got where I am. This whole time, I've still been an IT director.
Right. Right.
Now, I work for a great company. They are extremely generous with, my ability to go do what I need to do when I need to do it, and to go to conferences and things like that. If I need to take off during the day to shoot, I mean, obviously it's IT, we can work remote. So, it's definitely a luxury to have this job that supports my ability to do what I want to do in my photography and in my teaching. So
love that.
I think it was really cool is, well, it was a little nostalgic when you were just talking, because I grew up in high school. I did all the agitating and all that in the darkroom world, and doing the developer and the stop bath and the fixer and having smelly hands all day and enlargers. I lived through that as well. And probably a lot of people that are listening to this probably haven't lived through that. They're dodging and burning in Photoshop, but not necessarily the old school way.
Right.
And an enlarger. And then you reference Corel Draw, and I was like, wow, that brings me way back, because I used to do that. Then they came out with Corel Painter back then.
Yep. And Corel Painter is huge now.
That's the interesting thing, because I actually got into Photoshop when that really started taking off in the photo world, and I basically just totally let go of Corel altogether.
Right.
And I wish I stayed there, because that's where you see a lot of this high-end artistic painterly photography work.
Yes.
Comes from Corel Painter, and that I feel like that's not talked about a lot. But it's interesting because there are people that get into photography, that picked up the camera first and they went that route. And there is a very, because even the couple that photographed our wedding, the gentleman originally was a graphic designer. And he got to the point where I think he was frustrated that he couldn't get the photography the way that he needed it for him to do what he needed to do for ad copy. So he started dabbling with photography, and it kind of grew. And now he's a very well-known photographer in our region. And but it's just something that's more like the technical path in a way. So it's kind of you learn. And I feel like some of us as photographers, we almost have the split personality where we might be technically better in the photography aspect, and then our work isn't at that level that we see online, because it's that Adobe stuff that you're talking about. It's Photoshop and Lightroom in the finishing side that we didn't, really click in to get it really tweaked out. So it's kind of interesting, kind of like we're over here in here. Sometimes we're just good on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's funny too, is I will go back, and somebody asked me this imaging a couple of years ago, and they were, there's a couple of guys that do a photo podcast, and they were doing interviews at the closing night party. And they asked me, what is the one thing that you think is most important to photographers? And I said, well, you have to learn your gear and actually read the manual. And then
what?
And then, right. But then not only read the manual, but read the manual and then put it away, go practice some stuff, and then come back and read the manual again. Because whether it's 6 months or even a year later, you're going to come back a year later with a lot more knowledge about things. And then you're going to get to that manual, and there's things in there that you did not understand before that are going to make sense now. And that still happens for me. I'll go back and rewatch a tutorial from something like Richard Sturdivant, the guy. He's an amazing composite.
We've hung out with him this past year.
Yeah, it's amazing. The first time you go through one of his tutorials, it's kind of like, what? There's no way. He makes it look so easy. A lot of it is because some of the things he does are unfamiliar to you. Some of the ways he uses brushes or the way he uses layers or blending modes or whatever. You come back to it maybe a couple months later, 3 months later, when you've done other things, it kind of clicks. It's like, oh, I get it now. Now I understand what he's talking about. Now I can finish and go through this tutorial. So it's people get frustrated. You open a manual for your camera or, your speed light, and it's like, man, what is all this stuff? What the heck is, why do we have exposure compensation? And now we have flash exposure compensation. And yeah, I'll tell you, for me, it took me a long time to understand why there were two different things and how those work, because you look at the manual and honestly, unless somebody sits there and says, this is what this is for, this is what this, you look at that manual, you're not going to understand. You're not going to understand. And so
it's
put it away and come back to it.
Yeah.
And I think what's tricky is there's the artistic side centered photographers that get into the business that are like, I don't want to touch a manual. I just want to go out and shoot and feel and it's internal. And then you having the IT background, it's like, no, you need to know process A, B, C will get you this result. And if you think about it, we know a lot of technical photographers that they technically get all the elements right and they come out with an incredible image. And then there's the others that just are heart-centered and they come out with an incredible image too. They don't know how to work anything.
The perfect example of that is Brian DeMint. And he's been at Shutterfest, he's been at After Dark. He could care less about anything on his camera. I mean, he literally went to Costco and bought a kit camera, and he makes amazing artwork. But he also has an art background, and he understands color theory, and he understands all of that stuff. And literally shoots with $15, he calls them chicken lights, just little floodlights from Home Depot, and creates amazing artwork and doesn't understand. I mean, I'm sure he understands some of the technical, but that to him, that's not important. And there's definitely people like that can just, they have that artistic vision. As long as they can get that thing into the green auto mode so that it's getting, something close, then they're going to work their artwork, in Photoshop.
And he's a risk taker too, from the artistic side, because I remember we were down teaching at Light Pro, and we were chatting with him after he had his talk, and he's like, "Oh, I totally failed today. The shoot didn't go out the way." And it's but he was willing to take risks and try something different that he never did before. To try to pull himself, which I think that's exciting because we're all, I think, on a different journey.
The first time I ever met Brian was at After Dark. I think it was 2013. It was in St. Louis, and he was painting one girl yellow and painting another girl red. And it's like, what is this guy doing? And he does crazy stuff, and he just creates amazing artwork. So
it's incredible to see what he comes up with.
So as you've gone through this journey, what do you feel is one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, whether it's with your photography or with education, that you had to really overcome along the way?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I'm still, it's still a work in progress. I'm still working to overcome is, learning the business side of things and how things work. And, to me, because that doesn't come as naturally to me as the technical and even the creative side. I do those, those brain tests, and whether you're left brain or right brain, I always come out right down the middle.
Yeah.
I think I still struggle a little more on the creative side. The technical side, that's a gimme. I got that. The creative side, I definitely have the ideas, and sometimes it's a little more difficult for me getting those ideas down even though I have them, than just understanding the technical. But the business side, that's the part of all of this that I still, like I'm sure most people struggle with. So one of the things I did this year, I decided earlier at the beginning of this year that I was going to step outside of the photography industry and start getting some mentors in marketing that had nothing to do with photography.
Good.
That's awesome.
Good. And so it's still a journey. I'm still, I'm still moving through, but I understand a lot more now than I did at the beginning of the year. I made some notes here just so I wouldn't forget, but like there's, Marie Forleo, I know you're well aware of, and Amy.
Yes, love Marie.
Yeah, Marie's great. She's definitely more, she has a program called B School. It's definitely heavier on female than males in her program. But to me, she's got so much knowledge on everything marketing. Amy Porterfield is amazing. The guy I've really started following a little bit more is a guy by the name of Rick Mulready. Who is a Facebook ad genius.
Yeah, we're actually a founding member of his FB Advantage. So when he launched that a couple of years ago.
So Rick, I mean, I've been following these people who.
That's where we get all of our Facebook tactics from.
Because you can't. The problem I was finding was a lot of the photographers that were out teaching business and marketing, they were teaching kind of singular things that work for them in their market.
Exactly.
And that doesn't always translate to other people in other areas and in other markets. So it could, just as an example, I know a lot of people talk about, like interacting with their local chamber. Jerry and Lori Kiefer, that's huge for them, right? They are active in their local chamber. Well, you know what? I have probably no less than 8 local chambers within like 20 minutes of me. It's like, which one do I join? So I kind of went to some mixers and I found one that I thought was going to be good, and like I got nothing out of it. Nothing out of it. Other than I got a free booth if I photograph one of their events. That was, that like did not pan out. And so, was I in the wrong chamber? Who knows? And for me, how much do I want to keep putting money into those and putting that time, because it's also a time commitment, right?
Absolutely.
They've got, breakfast meetings, they've got lunch meetings, they've got mixers, they've got all this stuff. You got to have the time to put into that. I know for the Kiefers, it's working wonderful for them. And they're doing very well with that. For me, it doesn't work because I've got too many options for something like that.
Yeah.
So, that's just kind of a one little example of something that, like, for them in their area, that works great.
Right.
Me in my area, I didn't have the same success that they had with that. Yeah. So
it's good though that you tried it. Though, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And again, like I said, it could just be that particular chamber wasn't the right fit for, what I was doing. And I was like pushing headshots at the time. And it just, I don't know. I didn't get any feedback. I mean, I was handing a lot of cards out, even for like family photography. There was a lot of people, I haven't had our family, photo done forever. Call me, handing cards out. And then nothing. So
I think it's the interesting thing about with entrepreneurship is like there's no one way of doing it, and you nailed it on the head that like it's finding what works best for you and your situation, and being too that you're still in the IT field. I mean, you've got other factors too that are in it too. So that's the beautiful thing about this is that it's like a test what's good for you and what works best for you, and that's okay if it's different than what everyone else is doing.
Sure. Yeah, and again, and that's one of the problems that I've found is that there are these photographers out there that are teaching, here's my marketing program.
Right.
This is going to get you 6 figures in the wedding industry if you follow my steps.
Yeah.
Well, there's no guarantee that those steps are going to work for anybody else in any other area. So that's why I decided to kind of step out of the photography industry and go to the people that are only doing marketing. It doesn't matter what the product is or what the service is or what it's for, they are doing marketing. And so, for me, one, because I have a day job, as probably more photographers than not still are working.
Absolutely.
A day job. That's an issue. And so where am I going to put my focus? I don't have the time. I mean, obviously with the company I work for and the job I do, I could go out banging on doors if I needed to, but for me, it's online marketing. That's where I need to put my focus. And that's where I've been studying myself. I've been studying over the past year, that whole kind of online marketing industry and Facebook ads and, Google ads and kind of how, and I mean, it changes almost daily.
Yeah.
Like right now, the hot thing with Facebook and Facebook ads is Insta stories. That's the hot thing, which is putting an ad on Instagram that shows up in between your friends' Insta stories. So it is the hot thing right now, but is that where my target market is?
True.
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. I'm currently looking for people that are looking for more high-end portraiture, or like I'm moving into like light painting and automotive stuff. They're probably not looking at Instagram as much. I mean, the car guys, sure. I will definitely do some testing with it. Am I going to put all my eggs in that basket? Probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things like Facebook now has this audience network, which is pushing Facebook ads out to other things. And I've seen them. I've been on websites and I've seen the ads come through from people.
Oh yeah.
And it's Facebook ad and it's popping up based on, what I'm viewing and looking at. And so there's a lot of stuff out there. Something I just saw today that I wasn't aware of, and I have to look more into it, but in the Facebook ad manager now, there's always been audience insights, which lets you go in and kind of play around with different parameters and try to figure out what the audience is. There's a new thing that it's called the Creative Hub. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's listed in that same tab with the audience insights, and it kind of lets you do some mock-ups of ads. And I don't know exactly what else it does for you, but Facebook is changing things all the time.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, that means that you've always got to be staying on top of that. Or, if you finally get to the position where you can pay somebody to manage your advertising and marketing, then you want to find somebody that is good at that can stay on top of that. So right now for me, it's me.
I think that's how it is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Most photographers are solopreneurs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, it's very hard to let go of anything because I just don't want to. I want to do it myself.
I think it's the problem with photographers and all us as a culture is like, it's ours, it's our baby. We're going to coddle it.
But then I think you do get a split though, because there are people like me that I like to edit. There are people that hate editing and can't wait to outsource that editing. Right.
Yeah.
But you've got to build that into your pricing model. Like you've got to price appropriately so you're covering that outsourcing fee. So, but for me, I don't, other than sending something out for extractions, I like doing my own editing. I hate extracting. It's terrible.
Oh yeah.
But I love editing. I love playing with stuff. And so that's what I've been doing as far as kind of on the business side of things this past year. I really kind of, after Shutterfest, I did a couple personal projects, shoots, up until May. And then I've kind of like not done much the last half of the year, just kind of inundating myself in learning marketing and learning all this kind of online stuff that's out there business wise that I didn't know. So
yeah, no, that's wonderful. Is there any marketing things that you are really looking forward to doing in this year, or anything that marketing advice you want to share with anyone, someone that's like kind of brand new?
Yeah, I guess it really depends on their situation. I mean, if you have the ability to get out locally and network locally, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Whether it's, street fairs or farmers markets or, local chambers for smaller areas, local chambers I'm sure is huge. I know it is. The bigger areas, like where I'm at, LA County, there's a lot of local chambers. So finding the right one, you could get lucky and hit it the first time, or you might not. I didn't get lucky on my first outing. And I found it difficult because I have the day job to be able to interact and go to everything that they do. I think that may be part of it as well. Like if you get involved in that local group, whatever it is, that you have to be involved. You can't just sign up, put your name on something and then sit back and wait. You've got to be involved. And I got involved as much as I could, probably not as much as I needed to get the benefit back from that. So I think that's number one. If you have that ability, you've got to do that local networking, local interaction with your community. Beyond that, then you're going to be where I'm at, where you've got to do it with Facebook ads or even Google AdWords or whatever. Which is
sounds like it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, from what you were saying though, it's definitely a trade-off. It's either, again, like the Facebook ads, like if you had the money to invest, then you can trade that money for time, almost like where you're in the same way with like outsourcing.
Right.
So if you have the money to invest to outsource, then you get your time back on that. Or if you love to do the editing, you don't want to outsource it, you're saving that money, but also now you have the time that you have invested in it. It seems like everything's definitely like that trade-off.
Give and take.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And you're able to hit more people with that ad because you're in a big market.
Yeah.
I mean, you're, where you're at in LA, where other people, we were talking about the Kiefers earlier on, because we've been coaching them for the last several years. And it's like, okay, we had to peel them away from the computer and get them into, and get them visual in the market. And the moment they did that, they start connecting. All of a sudden they have these school accounts and these, they also do like painting with cars and stuff too. Right. And there's a couple opportunities. It really ended up being a face-to-face contact, a risk that they took that we went through with them that paid off really, really well. And now has them getting huge accounts, doing that. The opportunities that are opening are just incredible.
And that's, for me, that's the reason why, I'm also moving in that kind of same direction as Jerry with the cards and light painting. Is it basically stems also from the pinup work that I've done here in LA, that I'm not like well known, but I have a pretty good following in the pinup area. A lot of the pinup models there's a big community of people that live that lifestyle, and I've made friends with them. And along with that are husbands and boyfriends that are also in that have the cars, have the bikes, have the trucks, have all that stuff. And, you know, those guys will pay money to have things done with their vehicles that they've invested their time and money into. Along with, I mean, what could be better than having an awesome light painting of your vehicle than having an awesome light painting of your vehicle with an awesome pinup model with your vehicle?
Yeah.
There you go. You're just packaging it all
Package
together.
it all in one.
Package it all together. So, I mean, that's been on the back of my mind for quite a while, that's the direction I'm going to head with that. And again, that's based off of the personal connections I've made from shooting the pinup stuff. So will I get that same networking ability from going to, you know, a chamber of commerce? No. But car shows, yes. And the pinup things and burlesque shows and all that, I will get those connections. And for me, that's something that I enjoy going to anyways. So that's a natural fit. So for, you know, then it just jumps back to the time commitment, right? Yeah. I've got to put that time commitment into that. So, you know, when you then jump to the online, then it depends on, you know, what's your budget for marketing, right? You've got to have some kind of a budget for marketing. You can definitely do Facebook ads on the cheap.
Oh yeah.
You know, and again, that's, you know, I still don't understand all of it. I don't understand all of the targeting. There's so much stuff to it.
Oh yeah.
You know, and every day they come out with a new, like, well, now they've got these, I forget what the new, I think it's landing page views. That's a new objective that you can select, that they're looking at their algorithms and they're trying to figure out the people that are more than likely to click on your link and stay there. And so you can target your ads to those people that are more than likely to go somewhere and actually wait for it to load and look at your content. So
it's a whole world.
It's a whole world. And you know, like I said, unfortunately, I think right now that you have those two options. You've got either local networking or you've got Facebook ads. There may be, you know, other little pieces here and there. Magazines probably not going to do anything for you. You know, the big like wedding sites, like the Knot and that kind of stuff. I don't know how well that does for people in the wedding business. I've not ever really heard great things that, you know, people like get all their business from the Knot. You know, there's bridal shows, there's all, you know, but again, a bridal show is a local event. It's a local networking event for somebody that's in the wedding business, or even if they're shooting boudoir, to go to a bridal event to, you know, try to get that bridal boudoir stuff. So yeah, I think overall, I mean, it's very general, but I think there's local community networking, and then there's Facebook ads. I mean, those are the two big,
I think,
marketing.
And I'm thinking in the future, the magic is going to be blending the two of them, hitting the same people.
Yeah.
That when you can get your targeting down so well that you're meeting people face to face, and then you still stay relevant in front of them virtually,
right?
To kind of lock in that retention.
Yeah, they're
many of us can master that.
Their tracking, their ad tracking is scary stuff. You know, I mean, you see the conspiracy theory people like, oh, I was just talking near my phone and now I'm seeing ads. It's like, I can almost guarantee that at some point you clicked on either a Facebook group or a Facebook page or a website. You clicked on something somewhere that you don't remember. Nobody has the bandwidth and the storage and the processing power to listen to this every day for everybody that has a phone and track what you're saying.
It's not that important.
It's not that realistic.
So Dave, for someone that's just starting out in the business, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Just starting out, don't charge people money until you're comfortable with your equipment. just because somebody says that your images look good, that doesn't mean that you should go out and start a business and start charging people. You've got to learn, you have to learn how to shoot. If you're going to go out, and I'm not talking about the artist type people that are just shooting art, creating art. I'm talking about people that want to shoot, family portraiture, weddings, whatever you're shooting as a business. You've got to have kind of all those ducks in a row. You've got to understand your equipment. You've got to understand the business. I mean, that's huge, because I've not really come across anybody that's like amazing at business and then they decide to start a photography business. That doesn't happen. It's always they get good at photography and then they decide to jump right into a business without, and there's some people that will have that business knowledge. They understand it, whether, it's a spouse or somebody else or something, their career that they're already in. But that's few and far between. It's mostly people that don't understand anything about photography business, and somebody told them their pictures look good and they start charging. And you guys know as well as I do, when you're out selling $50 CDs or USBs of a family session, that it's not a sustainable business model. You can't make a living doing that unless you're doing just so much volume. But then it comes back to time. It's like, how much time are you going to commit to that? It's, it's ridiculous. So, but then there's also the legal side of things, insurance and taxes and all that stuff that people forget about. And some people forget about it until it's too late. And so, once you get a camera and you think that you want to make the move to be a professional photographer, you need to make sure that you understand what you're doing with your gear, with your equipment, the style of photography that you want to shoot, that you're comfortable with that. And then you've got to understand the business side of things. And honestly, you've got to look for somebody that's got that expertise to learn from. So it may not be the photographers that are speaking at a conference. Could be, but it might not be. So, you got to do your homework. You got to kind of do a little research on who it is you're following and, what their story is. So, people aren't going to follow me for amazing business advice. That's not going to happen. People will follow me to learn how to use Lightroom. And learn how to do backups and the technical stuff that they need. That there's so many photographers that this is the other thing is that it's really almost impossible to be a photographer today without using a computer, right? I mean, it's unless you're only shooting film, and even then you still probably going to have to use a computer. I still find photographers that don't even understand how to move files around, or, they don't understand the concept of folders and hard drives and all that. And you have to have, at least a basic understanding of all of that stuff. It's important. So, without, you can't jump into a photography business and not understand some of that. Right. Because what happens, if you're out charging people money and then you lose all their files, what are you going to do? Right.
And we know people that have done that.
Yeah. It's very scary.
And it's very, very expensive.
And if you don't have, if you don't have business insurance and liability insurance and all that stuff, then you're leaving yourself wide open. So
a lot of people didn't think about that.
So many pieces to running a professional photography business besides just being a great photographer. So
true.
Excellent. But I think to get back to your question, the one thing is you got to learn your gear. You got to learn your gear. If you're going to be a professional photographer charging people for photography, you've got to learn your gear. Not the artist people, not the Brian DeMints of the world that are crazy, amazing artwork. I'm talking about the wedding photographers, the family photographers, the newborn photographers, the boudoir photographers. If you're going to do that and you're going to charge people for that, you got to know your gear. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Good. All right. So I want to shift gears and ask a fun hypothetical question.
Okay.
If you had to relocate to a new area today with no clients and nobody knew who you were, and you had $1,000 in your business bank account, what would be the first thing you would do to grow your business?
I think I guess part of it would depend on what the style of photography that I was doing, right? So I guess if I was a wedding photographer, the first thing I would do would be to find the local bridal events and make sure I have a presence there. So I mean, weddings and boudoir, same thing. You're gonna want to go to that. Beyond that, headshots and portraiture, I think it falls back to being out in the community at, chambers, things like that. I think I would invest into that. So obviously that money's going to go to probably, brochures or advertising materials that I would have to hand out and to pay for booth space or, event fees or whatever.
Great.
Yeah. And in a new place, I think that's key. That's
absolutely. Comes back to that connection. So good.
You got to have those community connections for
absolutely
for most of the type of work that photographers are doing as a business. I think that's huge. That's huge.
Awesome. Now, is there anything that you do on a daily basis or like a success ritual, something that you feel that contributes to your success, a routine that you have?
Besides like waking up, still breathing.
It's a good routine.
that's like my number one success. Oh, wait, I'm still alive here. Well, this is a double-edged sword, but I strongly feel that you can never stop educating yourself, right? And I've done this to myself to where you overload yourself on too much education, right?
So true.
You're spending all your time learning and then you're never out doing. And like I said, I've done that. I've done that to myself numerous times, or I've spent, my wife will tell you there's been times, and she thinks I'm weird because I do love reading technical books. Although I don't really get books anymore, it's always either Kindle or, videos. But like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still reading through the Adobe Lightroom class in a book, going through. So, I mean, you definitely have to take it in moderation, but I think you always need to be learning. There's always, there's really nothing new. As far as photography, there's new equipment, there's new software, there's new methods of doing things, but the fundamentals aren't changing. Like photography is still photography. You've got, correct exposure, whether or not the new camera gives you more high dynamic range or whatever, that's always going to come. You get new equipment, you've got some educating that you've got to do, but the fundamentals aren't changing. So, you don't want to get too overwhelmed with that. But I do think just in general, not even just in photography, I think in general, just to keep your brain healthy and functioning, that you constantly need to be learning something.
That's great.
Whatever you're
absolutely.
doing, I think that helps keep your mind sharp, because you're constantly refreshing and putting new things in. I've probably forgotten a lot of stuff that, may or may not be important, but, it's like, I'm in IT and I'm not a programmer, but I've done programming. The problem is if it's something you don't use, like if you don't do it for 6 months, It's gone. It's
gone.
out the back,
Yep.
and it's gone. So, anytime I have to revisit some piece of code that I wrote 2 years ago to do a tweak, I got to spend a lot of time like, what the heck was I thinking here? So, things like that, like Photoshop, if you're not doing composites all the time, and then maybe you decide, I want to do a composite, you may have to spend a little time reviewing and going back and looking at a tutorial, figuring out how it is you want to piece things together. So, but I think that is kind of my ritual, is that I do try to continually educate myself. Like I said, this past year has been marketing, online marketing, webinars, Facebook ads, things like that. I've spent the year doing that. I don't need this. I do still try to learn new things in photography. Like I'll catch, every once in a while I'll see something pop up on Creative Live. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I may or may not use it, but I might learn something cool from it. And so I'll watch it.
That's awesome. And is there a business or marketing or photography tool or resource that you use in your all the time that you couldn't live without?
Well, let's see. Definitely. I mean, obviously the two basics, Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a given. I mean, that's like breathing to me if I don't have Lightroom, Photoshop. Although I am branching out. I'm looking at a lot of other stuff. Because a lot of people are coming out with not direct replacements for Lightroom, because Lightroom does a lot. They've definitely broken things here and there, and they've taken way too long to get Lightroom performance to where it needs to be. The newest version is great. They've done tremendous things with performance, and they're still doing it. But people like Alien Skin and Capture One and the Mac Fun guys with Luminar, there's a lot of new players coming out, and On One is their latest On One Raw 2018 is pretty fantastic. So I'm branching out away from some of my Adobe stuff. And I use it. I am using all of these applications for different things. And so I think beyond that, the biggest thing that I've been using, that I'm continuing to use, and I've had it for a while, is the sticky albums and sticky folios. I've actually converted all my websites, my photography websites, are now all running on sticky folios. Cool. So to me,
will be excited to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm a lifetime member of sticky albums, and this is what was, I wouldn't completely blame this on conferences, but I had that, right? I have lifetime with sticky albums. And I would occasionally use sticky albums for things, and then it got converted to sticky folios, and I had it. I was still paying for website hosting.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I was sitting there one day, and I'm like, why am I doing that? Well, because I was at a conference, and I'm not even going to mention the company because they're a great company. And I'm like, oh man, I got to have this. This is amazing. And I started paying for it. And I was like, why am I paying for that? I already have this. And, then I was getting caught up in, there's great companies out there for studio management. But if you don't need it, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Right.
When you get to the point that you need it, it's great. But there's no point, just because you decided you're going to be a professional photographer, that does not mean you immediately have to buy and pay for studio management software.
Yeah.
Not right away. Wait till you have the clientele so that you can afford to pay for that. I was buying it. Oh man, I need that. I need that program. I need this. I need this. And I was like,
I think we all fall trapped to that sometimes.
Shiny objects.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. They get you at the checkout stand with the candy.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, take a step back and think about, when you're looking at this stuff and man, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, man, that is like so hard to resist that stuff.
We did resist it this year.
Yeah.
Because I binged on it in the past myself, and this year, we went into it going, no.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Yeah. And then, beyond that, you've got those, they throw these great offers at you, and it's like, well, maybe, 9 months from now, I might need that. So I'm just going to get it now because it's cheap. But then you've got 9 months where you're probably not using it.
Yeah.
So is it really that cheap? Not really.
True.
So, be mindful of that. The other thing, and this is the one that I am adamant about that you've got to stay on top of, is upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Upgrades come out, and usually it's worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is a lot of people, like, I'm on a laptop that's what is this, like 4 years old now? Still a great laptop. I'm probably not gonna upgrade this laptop for a while. But if I had a super old laptop and I've upgraded, but I'm holding on to old software is not written to take advantage of that new piece of hardware that I'm running. So, I'll see people a lot of times, oh, I just got I've got the new iMac Pro and I'm running Photoshop CS5.
Oh, right.
Well, Photoshop CS5 knows nothing about this new machine, this memory that you have, this processor that you have. It's not designed for that. And you're limiting yourself and you're holding yourself back. So you've got to stay up to date. It's a pain in the butt.
It's a never-ending story.
Like, this stuff is constantly, your operating system is being updated, your software is being updated, hardware is being updated. It's hard, but if you're doing this as a business, it's something you have to think about.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But then on the other side of that, you've got to think about, when should you do those updates, right? I do them all the time, but I'm always testing things, and that's kind of my job. I need to do this. If you're running a busy working photography business, don't do it. Mm-hmm. If your system's working, keep it working until you got downtime to go through and do your upgrades. So, but it is part of doing business, is keeping up to date with your software.
Nice.
It's funny, what I typically do when Adobe comes out with an update is I wait for you to react. And you're like, I had to uninstall the new update. Did this, blah, blah, blah. Wait until they fix it. And I'm like, okay, Dave said don't do it.
I'm in the Lightroom beta group, and sometimes, I have one machine that I'll put the beta software on, and I'll test with copies of my catalogs. I've had really good luck with not really damaging everything. But like I said, I mentioned this to you guys earlier, that I've relocated my office, and so it's not close to my home. I've got, like a 30-minute drive back and forth. And so I've had to get much better at transferring files back and forth, transferring my catalogs back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I use software on the Mac called ChronoSync that I use to synchronize everything. And something happened. I plugged my drive in at home over the past weekend, and Lightroom wouldn't open my catalog. Something I either shut down too quickly, or I unplugged the external drive before it was done synchronizing. I did something. It wasn't a Lightroom problem. It was either a user error or whatever. But because I do my backups, I just went to the backup that I had when I last closed Lightroom, and it was intact. So, you do have to be careful with updates. Things happen. Backups are critical. And I didn't really even mention that. That's huge.
Yeah.
If you're running a business, you've got to do backups.
Absolutely.
And if Dave Doeppel had something corrupted, maybe user error,
Anybody, yeah.
that means anybody. That means all of us are susceptible.
Anybody is susceptible. Yeah, it can happen. And if you don't have a backup, and that was just the built-in Lightroom backup.
Yeah.
Like I could have come back into the office to my big system, which has multiple backups and is backing up to the cloud. And I could have, like, if I had to, I could have come back to that.
Yeah.
But because I do backup, the Lightroom backup of just the catalog that keeps it in a folder with the catalog, I was able to grab it right away.
That's good.
Which is the main reason for doing those Lightroom internal backups is catalog corruption. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen.
Yeah.
So last but not least, what are you working on now, and how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so I'm working on a couple things. Like I said, I'm kind of in the same boat as a lot of people because I'm starting over with my actual photography business. Like I said, I was doing the pinup and boudoir stuff. I'm not really doing that. I'm moving more into high-end portraiture and the automotive and the light painting and stuff. So that I'm moving into. On the teaching side of things, I've started a new site called the School of Tog.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've got all the back end pieces are all in place. So I'm working on that. And then I'm doing the Live Dave show on Facebook and YouTube Live. I was planning to start back this week, but with the holidays and everything else, I just didn't feel like it. I just didn't feel like getting up early to do that. But normally on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern, I'm broadcasting on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, the Live Dave show, talking about photography. So I'm doing that every week, and that'll start up again next week. And then the School of Tog is coming, which is basically going to have 5. It's going to be an all-inclusive thing, one price, you get everything. It's going to have photography basics. It's going to have lighting basics, and that's going to be studio lighting as well as speed lights, and teaching people about modifiers and just everything about lighting. And then I'm going to have Lightroom. I'm in the middle of updating my Lightroom training, Photoshop, and then the final one is going to be kind of back office technology, teaching people about backups, about websites, about domain names and email and kind of all the technical stuff that where I live every single day.
Yeah.
So and a lot of people don't understand a lot of that, and they don't understand how email works and how domains work and how to set up the websites and things. So there's going to be those 5 kind of core things, and then I'll start adding in kind of a bonus section where I'll have alien skin exposure and on one and kind of the ancillary thing, software things that are also useful that don't kind of fit into those main 5 categories. So
that's awesome.
Hoping to get that launched at least with 2 modules before the end of this month.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Wow.
That's exciting. And we know there's so many people that could really benefit from that. Like you said, it's really getting to know your gear, know the basics so that you can take that knowledge and then apply it to your business and slowly bring the other pieces in too. So.
Yep, absolutely.
On a personal end, I'm not even sure if I would even say basics anymore. I think it's the essentials.
Yeah.
Like it's the foundational pieces that everybody just wants to leap over that hurdle before they even start the race.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely essentials. I mean, obviously, if somebody's never going to be more than a natural light photographer, that's great. They don't need to learn speed lights and studio lighting, but they need to understand everything there is to know about how to really take a good natural light photograph.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
How what they should be doing with their exposure, placement of their subjects out in the scene, and whether they're in the shadows or on the edge of the shadows or, you know, under dappled light or whatever. They're, you know, they need to understand all of that before they just go out and say, you know, just because you can go and throw your camera in, you know, AV mode and go shoot outside, that doesn't really mean you're a natural light photographer. So because you don't, you know, it's still kind of an automatic mode. There's only one manual mode, and that's manual. Everything else is like automatic or semi-automatic. And there's reasons to use all those. And, you know, I think that's one of the first things that people really need to understand, the difference in those, what those kind of basic modes are on almost every camera out there.
Right.
That's awesome.
And how to, you know, it's one thing to be able to put it in that mode. It's another thing to be able to master that mode.
True.
And know what to do when things aren't coming out the way you think they should.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
spending this time with us and sharing your knowledge and your experience. And we know a lot of people are really going to appreciate that. And even the journey that you took, because again, there's not one way of, we've been talking to so many different people. There's not one way of going on this journey. And it's just really exciting to see what you're doing and you're creating. And we're excited to see what happens this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a great year. And you know, I've made a lot of changes. I've kind of personally made the choice that I'm avoiding conferences this year. I'm going to have some FOMO for sure. I know, like, we got a week away from imaging in Nashville, which is amazing, just in general. And I know a lot of my friends are going to be there, and I'm not going to be there. And that's going to be, I think I'll stay off of social media.
Yeah, you stay off of social media
for that entire time. But I will be at home recording tutorials for people. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, I've made a little bit of a change for this coming year, that I'm not traveling as much, and I'm going to be focusing on educating and teaching and tutorials, and you know, which I can do at home in my pajamas.
Exactly. And then
so I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too, because the one thing we learned with teaching is that there's so much effort that goes to going to these conferences, even as a speaker, and then the people have to invest a lot, you know, just the amount of time that they take away from their families and their friends, and the expenses that they go through. And then when we arrive, you know, even if we have a packed room, there's only like could be like 200 people in there.
Yeah.
Or even though we jokingly say, like, you're gonna be at home in your pajamas, you have the ability to impact thousands and thousands and thousands of lives. Right. For typically such a minimal investment that people barely pay for their air flight or one hotel night, you know, to get that same value. So it's really.
I will say, you know, we talked about, you know, as far as like marketing for the photographers, you know, being involved in the local community, you know, all that.
Yes.
I do think that making the effort to at least attend a conference.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not every year, but to get out to and interact with your peers and network with your peers, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing. I've made amazing friends that I will have for the rest of my life from being out at conferences. Not even once I got to the point where I was teaching. I mean, just going and attending and being at the trade show. And I mean, that is important. The trade shows are important because you get to put hands on things that are out, and that is huge.
That's true.
And I mean, this is the first year that I won't be at a conference at all since probably 2010.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I'm gonna do.
we won't tag you in any of our photos.
Yeah, please do not tag me in any of your fun photos. I'll be watching though.
But we appreciate you that you're staying home and working on so much awesome education for people that they're just going to love. So that was truly appreciated.
It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I've got ideas and new things that I want to do, and I'm continually writing those lists and refining those lists and making adjustments as things come up. But 2018, I think, is going to be a great year for everyone for photography. And I will be sad that I will not be out at Imaging and Shutterfest this year, but I have no doubt that they will continue to succeed without me being there.
Right. You will be missed. So. Well, again, we do want to take the time to thank you again for
thank you guys
today, and we're really excited for the community to get this information and because the candid conversations, those are the best for us.
Yeah, I think so too. It's real. It's things are the way they are.
Exactly.
Yep.
Not everybody's $1 million photographer.
And most of us don't want to do what it really takes to be that.
No.
There's so many sacrifices that come along. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. We want to thank you again, and let me go ahead and.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Tog Talks, sponsored by Photographer Entrepreneurs Association. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the association, go to photographerentrepreneur.com to learn more about photography business resources, templates, training, and support. We'll see you over there.